Brenda Dowd was disappeared exactly 2 years after another person went missing 100 miles from this case. On July 6th of 1958, the Dowd family took their 5-year-old daughter Brenda to Eagle Pond in New York to enjoy some vacation time. The area is very rugged with lots of thick vegetations. At some point in July 6th, Brenda disappeared and the family called the authorities. One day after the girl went missing, heavy rain started to pour down and hampered the effort. There were 200 volunteers, bloodhound dogs, 2 helicopters and 2 Army National Guards units searching for her. On the 3rd day of the search, volunteers were 2 miles from Brenda's camp covering a swampy area with lots of trees when they thought they saw something. They approached the object and found Brenda. She was missing her shoes, socks, pants and wearing just panties. She was in a good condition. Searchers tried to understand what happened during Brenda's disappearance and how she managed to eat and drink for 3 days. Brenda was quiet for the most part, but enjoyed telling them her experience. She said she had seen 3 bears, 2 asleep and 1 awake. Brenda did not explain further what other things happened during her disappearance. The Greenwood family lived in Socorro, New Mexico, around 140 miles east of Reservation Lake in eastern Arizona. In June of 1967, Raymond Greenwood took his 5-year-old son Danny and 12-year-old son Martin to Reservation Lake for a long weekend fishing. They reached their camp on Wednesday, slept early and started fishing on Thursday morning. This area is very rugged and is filled with trees and thick vegetations. Just after lunch, the 5-year-old Danny told his father he was going to walk back to their campsite. Raymond said that was fine. The campsite was 50 yards down a small and defined trail, and Danny walked directly to the camp. After a short period of time, when Danny didn't show up, Raymond got up and went back to the campsite. But Danny was nowhere on sight. Raymond searched the immediate area and after not finding any clue, he called the authorities. Within 4 hours, the county sheriff of Arizona and state police was on the scene searching the area. Searchers found small footprints which they assumed it must be Danny's. The footprints were moving from family's campsite up into a boulder-filled area towards the summit of Mount Baldy. The entire Mount Baldy is marked as a designated wilderness area. This means that nothing with a tire can go into this area. Only people on foot or horseback are allowed in a designated wilderness area. Searchers scanned the lake and shoreline and after not finding anything, they had to come into the conclusion that Danny walked almost directly uphill towards the summit. This path taken by Danny didn't make sense to searchers. Regardless, the search group split up and started their way to the top of the Mount Baldy. They continued their effort and finally found Danny's body 20 feet from the summit of 11,600 foot Mount Baldy. This is the highest peak in Arizona. His body was found 15 miles from the campsite they were staying. Nobody believed the boy did the journey by himself. The physicians looked at the body and stated he probably died from exposure the second night he went missing. Researchers showed children from 4 to 6 years old when climbing upward in elevation will be found 95% of the time after climbing 1,300 feet or less. Danny left Reservation Lake at 9,000 feet and made it to 11,580 feet, which amounted to a vertical climb of 2,580 feet. The study also showed children will be found 3.7 miles if walking uphill. Danny had walked 15 miles uphill into freezing temperature. When Danny was going uphill, if he looked down, he could see the lake and knew his father and brother were there. He had no reason to go uphill to colder weathers. The last 400 feet of the Mount Baldy summit is almost sheer cliff coming from the side that Greenwoods were fishing. The only way Danny could get to 20 feet from the summit was to take the path from the exact opposite side of the campsite, something he didn't seem to do based on the tracks. Why the 5-year-old Danny took the Mount Baldy route to his death in June of 1967 remains a mystery to this day. On October of 1950, Mr. and Mrs. Langer went to their hunting cabin in Somerset of Vermont. The couple brought in their cousin with them to hunt. The area they were hunting was well known to the Langer family as they used to go there regularly to hunt for 14 years. On October 28, Mr. Langer woke up with a sore knee and told his wife and cousin to go hunting without him. The 53-year-old Mrs. Langer and her cousin got out of the camp and were walking for an hour when Mrs. Langer tripped and fell into a small creek, getting wet. At 3:50 p.m., Mrs. Langer told her cousin she was getting cold and wanted to go back to camp to change. The two walked back towards the camp for a few minutes and then decided to split up momentarily and meet up again at the camp. When the two split up, Mrs. Langer was 150 yards from the cabin they were staying in. At 4:40 p.m., the cousin arrived back at the camp and didn't see Mrs. Langer, so Mr. Langer and him started searching the area. They were getting worried because there was no doubt in their mind that Mrs. Langer couldn't get lost, especially that close to cabin. She visited this area for 14 years. The two didn't find her the first night, so they called the authorities the next day. A week-long search didn't have any result to show, and eventually the search was suspended. Nothing else happened regarding this disappearance until May 14th of 1951, almost 7 months after Mrs. Langer went missing. Two men were fishing 3 miles from the cabin the Langer family was staying at the time of the disappearance, when they saw an object in the swamps. This area had been searched initially when she went missing. They went closer and saw the body of Mrs. Langer. A coroner's report says she died from accidental drowning. Why would she go to a swamp to drown when she knew her cabin was 150 yards away? It doesn't make sense. Something evil happened to Mrs. Langer and we will never know it.